This is the iPhone X, or as some people call it, the iPhone 10. It was released in 2017, and I'm going to talk you through how I think this device fares in 2023. First of all, design and aesthetics. The camera module on this device is very small. The iPhone 14 Pro camera module comes out to over halfway nearly of the device itself, so the camera sticks out a lot more and the bump is definitely a lot bigger. So when you hold the device like this, it's quite a small bump, it's a lot bigger on the newer devices, so that's a noticeable change. Furthermore, the Apple logo is in the top of that device, so on the back, the Apple logos currently are in the center of the device, just like on the 12 Pro, 13 Pro, 14 Pro, etc. But on the iPhone X models, they were still nearer the top. I actually personally prefer the central Apple logo, which isn't on this device, but you know, it's only a minor aesthetic thing. It's got a glossy back, which is worse for fingerprints, although it's still got a very nice aesthetic to it. It allowed Apple to put the iPhone writing down the bottom along with the disposal instructions, because the back is see-through, so you can read where it was designed, where it was assembled, and disposal instructions on the bottom of the device. Overall, I still think the design of the back of this device is very clean and very minimalistic. It really suits Apple's aesthetic, and really I don't think it's aged too badly. Other than the camera, you wouldn't really think that this is an almost 7-year-old device. The sides of this device are made from stainless steel and they have antennas so that you can get your 4G and cellular networks. So on the right hand side of the phone, so if you're holding it towards you, the right hand side here, you've got the power button and you've got the SIM tool. So you poke your SIM tool in there and it takes the SIM tray out. There's an antenna at the top and bottom. On the top of the device there is absolutely nothing. On the left-hand side of the device, you've got the two volume rockers, so volume up, volume down. Then you've got the mute slider, which I personally really love. Yet again, you've got the antenna at the top and the antenna at the bottom is on the left and right-hand side. The bottom of the device shows the lightning port, two pentalobe screws, which is if you wanted to repair the device, and two speaker grills, although Apple only ever have one speaker grill that works. Generally, it's the right-hand speaker that actually produces the sound, and then I think a chamber echoes it to the left-hand one, but I'm not fully sure. Now, if this video does well, I'm happy to make a video talking about one of the problems with the iPhone X, and in my case, it's the green line from when you drop it. So upon impact, it can sometimes damage some of the pixels, and you can see that on this particular phone, which I was given, it's got that damage going along the left-hand side of the screen. If we look at the design of this phone, you'll notice that actually, considering it's 7 years old, it doesn't look bad. The notch stuck around until 2020, so the iPhone 12 Pro, which was the last iPhone to use this size notch, was released in 2020. It was replaced in 2021 by the iPhone 13 Pro, which released the slightly smaller notch. So only in 2021 did this notch not be produced by Apple anymore. So actually, it lasted almost 5 years. So really this design hasn't really aged that much, although obviously it's now been replaced by a smaller notch on the 13 Pro models and then the dynamic island on the 14 Pro, but really doesn't look too bad. Because this device has the rounded off edges, because it doesn't have the boxy side design, it does mean that the bezels aren't quite as noticeable as they sort of go off into the distance. But generally, I still think the front aesthetic of this device looks really, really good. It still feels modern, still feels up to date, and it still looks really, really in keeping with the aesthetic that lots of modern phones are going for. I frequently comment on Apple's incredible software support for their devices. This phone is almost 7 years old, I think it's 6 years old at the moment, and it is on the latest iOS version. It is on iOS 16.6, which is the latest public version of iOS. This means you get most of the latest features. So as you can see here, you get the lock screen changing there, you can customize the lock screen. All these features that were fairly recently introduced, you get on this phone. Yet again, a very small feature, but being able to turn on your battery percentage in the top right hand corner of the screen is on this device because it has the latest software. So having the latest software is really a big asset to this device, and it's what helps it feel modern and up to date. And that really, really helps considering the age of this device. Now I've taken a photo on the iPhone 12 Pro and the iPhone X of the same plant. As you can see here, the detail is actually pretty good, as you would expect, although you can still see some blurry bits when you zoom into the detail. This isn't to be unexpected, and the overall image does look fairly good and fairly consistent. Generally, the camera on this device is good. You've got the 1x and the 2x lens. You have got live mode, which is nice, and you've generally got the Apple features which come generic on most devices. The things that this device does not have, which is a shame, is night mode. Night mode was a big update because it allowed you to get really good photos at night. This phone does not have that. It's got the general modes though, as you would expect. The great thing about this device is even though it is quite an old one, it can shoot 4K video. Simply navigate into settings, then you're going to scroll down to camera. In camera you can change the video recording quality. As you can see here, you can go up to 4K at 60 frames per second, so it can still shoot pretty good 4K video. When you look online for refurbished iPhone X's, they're coming up about £190. This is only one website and it's only a sample, but I'm just generally acknowledging that they aren't too expensive, as you can see here. Generally prices are below £200, and this is really good. The price is a really good incentive to purchase this phone. However, I will make it clear that if you are to purchase this phone in 2023, you will not get any more software updates. The latest software you are going to get is iOS 16.6. So unless you are happy using a slightly out-of-date software, it's maybe not the best purchase. An iPhone 12, which is still fairly inexpensive when you get them renewed or reused, generally will get a lot longer software updates, and it's got some of the more modern features like the boxier designs. It's a shame that the processor on the iPhone X will not allow it to get this latest software update, because really the phone itself still feels smooth, fluid as you open up apps, as you close apps, and as you navigate through it. Generally it still feels quite up to date. If you currently own the iPhone X, should you upgrade? Well, this is a question that is slightly hard to answer. Depending on your battery health, this is very easy to check. If you go to battery in your settings, so press battery there and then press battery health and charging, it tells you your percentage compared to when it was brand new. On this particular device, it's a 78% battery health. So depending on your battery health, depending on how this phone works for you, you may or may not want to upgrade it. If you want the latest and greatest software and you've got a potentially bad battery, then maybe it is worth the upgrade. But if you're happy with this sleek design, phone that still feels relatively modern in 2023, your batteries are lasting you more than well enough, and you're not too fussed about the latest software, then you can definitely stick with this for a couple more years. I personally would recommend buying the iPhone 12 models if you're looking to upgrade your phone. I personally do not like the fact that Apple used a slightly bad screen on the iPhone 11 models, so if possible getting an iPhone 12 could be quite good because it's got 5G, so it's more future-proofed than buying an iPhone X. If your budget does not stretch to it, this device is still very good. It takes decent quality photos, decent quality screen, decent design, and it really holds up quite well in 2023. The speakers I'm just about to briefly touch on. They do fire from here and the bottom. I can play you an audio demonstration, but because this phone is heavily used, the speakers are not in the best condition. Generally though, they seem to be alright in terms of volume, and they'll definitely do if you're consuming content or just listening to basic music. The brightness on this device is more than good enough for indoors. However, if you go outdoors in the bright sunlight, you will notice perhaps struggling to see the screen, although I do still have this issue with my iPhone 12 Pro. A feature that lots of people do really like about the iPhone X is 3D touch. So depending on how hard you press an item, you can get different things. If you press down very hard, you can adjust it. It's what's known as, according to Mac Rumors, they did a very good article. They said that 3D touch supports multiple levels of pressure. So softer presses can do one thing and harder presses can do another. This is something that the newer iPhones do not have. They replaced it with haptic touch. Now personally, day-to-day experiences with it is not going to be vastly different, although it is something that if you use frequently could be a consideration in terms of whether or not you upgrade, or whether or not you want to upgrade to an iPhone X because you think you like 3D touch. Overall, I think this phone is very solid in 2023. While I don't recommend you upgrade to this phone unless you have a very old iPhone, I do still think that this phone holds up very well. If you own this device, as I say, and it's got decent battery health, you're fairly happy with it, and you're not fussed about the latest software, you could definitely keep it going for a few more years. It really is the fact that it's got the nice big 5.8-inch display and no home button, and that Apple hasn't really changed their design that much since this device. That's the main reason you can keep it going. Apple's incredible software support also means you are still getting most of the new features, although you will miss out on iOS 17. Generally, I think this phone is really nice. Getting used to my iPhone 12 Pro and switching to the iPhone X, just as in using it briefly for this video, I do really like the thinness of the device. It feels really smooth in the hand, and not having the jerky, hard, square edges of the 12 Pro is definitely a nice thing about this device. So generally, I'm very impressed with it, and I think it holds up very, very well. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you around.